gives you the area to the left of the z. Let me rearrange this. So if we are doing my z here, the normal CDF, everything is going to be to the left, to the left, to the left. It's always going to be, and that's what this picture is showing you, is to the left.
To the left of the Z.
Correct.
Okay.
So let's look at this one. It gives you the picture and it tells you to find the z. So are we doing the normal CDF or the inverse CDF? This is this area right here. So they're telling you the area, and they want you to find the z. This is what we don't know.
Oh, that's
This is inverse. So what would be listed first? Tell me the words that I'm going to put them in the order. Area, mean, standard deviation. So what would go first? 0.3050 and 1. So when I go to my calculator, I'm going to do, now the way I got the inverse norm, y'all, is I did second bars, and I went to inverse norm. Now, it's not going to ask me like this, 0.305001, and it's not going to ask me whether to do left or right. That's why I'm not going there. So I'm just doing second enter so that you can see it like you'll see it on the test. So when you do it on the test, on the calculator on the test, when you go to second bars and pick inverse norm, this is what's coming up. 0.3050, comma, 1, comma, 0. Crap. Yes. Mean, comma, standard deviation. Now, this is where you ask yourself, is that the correct z? That is the correct z. And the reason it's the correct z is because it's shading to the left. We good? So my answer is going to be z equals negative 0.51, however long they tell me to round it to.
So why this time you give me the negative?
Do what?
Why this time you give me the negative?
If your shading is to the left,
Yeah.
your z is going to be happy. To the left, to the left. Your z is going to be happy.
Yeah, but the
But if
other
it's to the right, okay.
but the other problem, we make the minus or the,
We flip the sign.
yeah,
And the reason we flip the sign,
because,
because it was to the right, so it wasn't happy. So if your shading is not to the left, your z is not going to be happy. It's going to be the wrong sign. Yeah.
Why was it positive the last time it was shaded to the left?
That's what she was asking, I think.
This one,
we,
The one that came up positive, but it was actually negative, I think it was.
this one,
No, the one you just showed.
this one. This one, it was shaded to the left, to the left, to the left.
So this should have been negative 0.50.
Where's your z? To the right of,
Okay, so if the Z is on the right of the line.
all your z's to the right are positive. Because you're jumping to the right.
I understand this word, but I don't understand why the calculator sometimes give me the right answer with the minus and sometimes not.
Okay, so if you're shading to the left, your z answer is always going to be right.
Okay,
So if I'm shading to the left, my z answer is always going to be right. But if I'm shading to the right, my z answer is not going to be right.
so I add the minus. Okay.
Correct. Or make it the opposite.
Okay.
Now, for your z's, y'all, count to 10. Now, if this is your z, if you jump to the right, your z's are going to be +1, +2, +3. If you jump to the left, -1, -2, -3.
I think it was no
So,
line.
like a number line. So your z answers are positive over here and negative over here. So if I go back to the problem that you didn't like just a second ago. This z is a positive because it's on this side. let's do another one.
I think it's the shading that's throwing me off, because I'm looking at the shading instead of the Z-score.
Yeah, that's why I'm looking tonight.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's confusing me when you just, sometimes they give you the information and you have to make a picture.
Yeah.
So,
We're gonna do that, I promise. Okay, so we have a normal distribution, which means we have a mean of 0, a standard deviation of 1. Now, tell me before we ever start, is my z gonna be positive or negative? My z is gonna be positive something because it's to the right of my mean. Yay? Are we doing an inverse or are we doing a normal?
Yeah.
Okay, it's a normal if you're finding this.
Oh, the percentage.
If you're finding the percentage, we do a normal.
Okay.
Okay? If you're doing an inverse, you're finding that. So what are we finding?
Inverse.
We're doing the inverse because we're finding the little dot at the bottom.
Yeah.
Yay? So we're going to do an inverse.
so we have just only two options.
We only have two options. So if you're finding the guts, you do the normal. If you're finding a point, you do the inverse. Normal guts, point is inverse. So we're finding the point, because this is the guts. Okay, so we're finding the point. So, what's area, comma, mean, comma, standard deviation. So, what is my area? 0.2061. What is my mean? Okay, so what this is going to give me is my point. So, I'm going to just back it up so that we can just type over it. 2061. Now, what did you tell me about my z-score? It's going to be positive because it's on the right. So my z-score is going to be positive 0.82. Don't worry about the shading right now. You just tell me what it's going to be.
So if the Z was on this other side, it would be
If the
negative.
z was
It would
on
stay
here,
negative.
it would be negative point blah, 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 blah. So don't look at the shading right now. We're going to do several of these.
So that would be the only thing that we would actually need to pay attention to.
The z-score, you're paying attention to the positive and negative. The guts, you're not having to do anything for the guts because when you plug in for the normal CDF, you're looking at the left shading and the right shading, so you're bounding the guts. You're making it a sandwich. So you're not having to worry about the guts. You're just having to worry about the sign of the z-score.
Okay.
All right. Woo.
Hallelujah.
Okay. P of 80. P of 80. What do you think P of 80 means? Oh, yes. This means the 80th percentile. So where do you think in that picture 80 would go?
The shade.
80 percentile.
It's, like it's in the middle,
In the guts.
yeah.
My guts are going to be 80%.
Yeah.
Because look what it says right here. Find Z.
So you would change that percentage though, right, to a decimal?
So are we doing inverse or are we doing norm? We're doing inverse. So it's going to be it's going to be area, comma, mean, comma, standard deviation. So what is my area going to be?
0.80.
Whoop whoop, 0.80. My mean is 0, my standard deviation is 1. Okay, so when I come over here, I am doing a second inverse. That's gonna be 80, 0, and 1. Now, look at my z-score. Is that the correct sign or not? Yes, because if we draw my mean, do you agree that my z-score should be positive? Because it's to the right. So that means my z-score is going to be a positive 8.4 or 0.84, blah, blah, blah. Yay?
If we were doing the shading part, it'd be negative, right? I'm just asking. If we were looking at the shading instead of the Z from that problem, it would be negative. Okay.
Okay, let's look at this one. They didn't give you a picture. We know it's a normal distribution, which means we have this and this.
We always have
On this test, we always have a standard normal distribution with a mean of 0, standard deviation of 1 on this test. Okay, tell me about Q3.
75%.
That means the third quartile, which Mariah just said represents what percent? 75%, because when we did the box and whisker, each one represented 25%. So, I need to shade 75% of this. So, what does that represent? Half or 50%, and then I'm going to go a little bit more. So that would be 75%, and we're going to find Z.
Okay.
How do you know that?
Exactly. Why we start? with
Unless they told us,
minus?
you always start from the small to the large,
Okay.
unless they tell us different.
Okay.
Okay, so what is this one going to be? Norm or inverse norm? This is going to be the inverse norm, 0.75, which is my, thank you, I was writing the wrong thing, mean and standard deviation. So what is my mean and my standard deviation? And when I plug that into the calculator, I get 0.67. Is that the right sign?
Yeah.
Yes, because it's to the right, therefore it should be positive. Okay, now for this last one. 0.29 corresponds to what percentile?
This one would be the normal one, right?
So we have this with this and this. Now, a z of 0.29. Would that put my z on the right or my z on the left? Oh, right, because this is positive. My positive z's are on the right. So a z of 0.29 is going to be here. And it's asking what percentile. So it means, so because we're finding this, we're going to do the normal CDF. Which means we've got to do what's on the left, what's on the right, what's my mean, and what's my standard deviation. So what would my left be? Negative 999. What's my right? 0.29. What's my mean? And what's my standard deviation? So for that one, I'm going to do second enter. I'm going to look up a normal CDF so that I don't have to do it. And we don't have to worry about is it positive or negative because this is telling me my guts. Second enter. Second enter. Second enters. Second enters. Second enter. I know I haven't done that wrong. Maybe it has. There we go. Normal CDF of negative 999, 0.29, 0, and 1. So that's telling me that the area under the curve is that, or 61.4%, according to whether they want a decimal or a whole number.
It wouldn't be negative.
This is the percent under the curve.
And I think that the percent is never going to be.
The percent is never going to be a negative. You can't make a negative percent on a test. And this should make sense, y'all, because what is this? What, 50%, so it's a little more than 50%. So this answer should be a little more than 0.5.
And like when you said, we'll know when we have to shade it to the right, like what would it say? Would it literally tell us like shade? to the
Greater
right?
than,
Oh,
I think I'm
greater.
fixing to do some of those. Yep. Let's look at this one. I'm gonna copy this and do one above and one below. What Z values determine the middle 90%? Okay? So, the middle 90% is gonna be like somewhere in here, correct? So that would be 90%. So I'm trying to find this Z value and this Z value. Now tell me about the Z value on the left.
Negative.
This Z value is going to be a negative, and this Z value is going to be a positive. Are they going to be the same numbers or different numbers?
About the same. The middle, I think of C.
It is going to be the same number because if that's 0 and that's 1, this is symmetric. This is like a butterfly.
Oh, yeah.
So this side and this side are going to be the same. Now, if this is 90%, what did those add up to be? 10%. So what is this one? 5%. Y'all with me? Now, if I'm doing Z-score, it's an inverse. And my inverse loves shading to the left. It doesn't like doing betweens. It likes shading out. So instead of doing this, let's do this. Okay? So, let's look at this piece. Let's zoom in on this piece.
So like instead of doing 9, we do 5.
Correct. Because if this is 5% and this is 5%, that's still going to give me my 100%. 90 plus 5 plus 5.
I don't know.
So if I do inverse CDF, what would my mean be, or my area be? 0.05. What would my 0 and 1? Because normal CDF likes doing what I call a tail. It likes doing either going to the left or going to the right. It doesn't like doing a middle piece.
And how did you get 5%?
Okay, I know that the whole curve is 100%. So if this piece is 90, that means this has to be the rest of the 100, which means that has to be 10. And because it's symmetric, if both of these are 10, that means each one is half of 10, which is 5. And I didn't do this one because inverse norm likes to the left, so that's why I chose that one.
Oh, okay.
It just clicked for you, didn't it?
Yeah.
All right, so if I come over here and I do a inverse norm of 0.0501. This is what I get for my Z-score. Now, I need to find these Z-scores, which means I have two Z-scores.
One positive, one negative.
So one's going to be negative 1.64 and the other one's going to be positive 1.64. Now, the reason this one was correct is because I was doing a Beyonce. If I would have done this one, it would have been incorrect, but I could have changed it and then changed it back to get this one. But inverse norm doesn't like to do this, inverse norm likes to do that. All right, let's look at another one. What Z values separate out the top and the bottom 5%? Well, we just talked about if this is 90%, This would be the bottom 5%, and this would be the top 5%. So it wants to know what Z values separate the top and bottom 5%. The same answer, negative 1.64, positive 1.64. It just wants you to realize, what did you just do? That's what I just did. I separated out that top and bottom 5%. So the answers for part A and part B are exactly the same. They just wanted you to figure out what you were doing.
I want to make sure you understand.
There you go. All right, let me slide this down. Meow, meow. All right. About what percent of the area is between Z equal -1 and Z equal +1, or 1 standard deviation of the mean? So if I draw, this whole test is a standard normal curve. So what is this?
0.
And what is this?
1.
So they want us to use two Z values. Which side is this Z value going to be on? The left. And this Z value is going to be on the right. And we want to know the percentage between, which means we want to know this.
So that would be like 4 to 1, 4 to 2,
So we want to know that.
like 50.
So are we doing a norm or an inverse norm?
Norm. We got norm.
Yes.
We got the Z.
We are going to do the norm because we have the Z. We're finding the guts, which means we're going to do a left, comma, right, comma, standard mean, comma, standard deviation. What is my left?
-1,
What is my right?
1,
What is my mean?
0, 1.
When you see this answer, second enter. So my left is going to be -1. Comma, my right is going to be 1. My mean is going to be 0, and my standard deviation is going to be, do y'all remember the 68, 95, 99, 7 rule?
It's 68.
When you go one deviation in either direction, it's about 68% under the curve. Range rule of thumb. As the empirical rule, 68, 95. So this one is going to be 68, 27, or wherever they tell me to round. So approximately 68.27%. So the next one is saying, what if we go 2 deviations in either direction? So this time, what if we go to Z of -2 and Z of +2, and we want to know the area between that?
If you were just, instead of doing the math, if you just put 6895,
It'll probably be, if they told you to round to 2 places, 68 would work. But if they told you to round to 4 places, 68's not going to work, because the 68 is an estimation. 68.27 is more exact. But yeah, if it was on the final exam, your answers are all multiple choice. So there's probably only going to be one answer that's 68 something something. So what do we think this answer is going to be? Around 95. But because we're finding the guts, we know that it's a normal CDF. So we're going to do left, comma, right, comma, mean, comma, standard deviation. What is my left? Okay, so if I come over here and I do second enter, I'm going to not do that. I meant to back that thing up. I'm going to do -2, +2. Look, 95 point something something. So this would be my area under the curve, or 95.45%. All right. Now, this is where they don't give you a picture. It says, assume that somebody was selected for a bone density test. They have a normal distribution with a mean of 0 and a standard deviation of 1. So they're telling me that it's going to be a standard normal curve. Find the probability.
Oh, no.
So they're telling me to find the shaded area.
Okay.
Area under the curve is the probability. Now, greater than a 0.18. This is how they're telling me to shade. So my 0.18, is that Z going to be on the left or the right? The right, because it's positive. So my Z is going to be over here somewhere. And because they're saying greater than, we shade that way. And because we're finding the guts, what are we going to do?
Normal.
A normal. What is my left?
-999.
Help me, Lord Jesus.
Oh, wait, no, 0.18.
0.18. What is my right?
That's
Help me, Lord Jesus.
Plus
Positive 999.
Okay.
We have usually been shading to the other way.
Messing with our head.
I know. Okay, our left is where we start shading over here. And up until now, our shading had started over here. This time, our shading started on here on the left. And it ended over here on the right, which is a positive 999. Okay? So if I type that into the calculator, it's going to give me 0.4286. Okay? Now, if I do this one, it's already told me it's a normal with a 0 and a 1. Where is my Z-score? To the left or to the right? To the right. Somewhere to the right, I don't care where, because my Z-score is positive. Okay? And which way am I shading? To the left. To the left, to the left, to the left. Okay? Now, normal CDF or inverse CDF? Normal. So normal means we do left, right, mean, standard deviation. So what is my left on this one? Thank you. Jesus didn't have to help me this time. What is my right?
0.9.
So this one's going to be 0.9948. So, and you can tell y'all, about 99% of that is shaded. Here, about 42% are almost half is shaded. Okay? Between 2 and 3. So if I were to draw it,
2Z.
these are my Z's.
Yeah.
So where would 2 be?
The right.
And where would 3 be?
The right.
And my shading is between 2 and 3. I'm finding the guts, so that would be the norm. What is my left?
No.
What in the hell? I remembered I was videoing. 2. What is the right? Y'all stuck on some 91s. My left shading is 2. My right shading is 3. I did not go to heaven or... There you go.
Oh, goodness.
2 to 3. So my my area under the curve, so that means about 2%. So I didn't shade that much, y'all. All right, what about this one? We have a normal distribution with a mean and a standard deviation, and we are doing a Z-score of 0.
That's
Okay, so that's everything on the left. Right.
Do I even need to do anything?
not really. Yes, it's
So once you get these, they're not that bad.
can't have something out of nothing.
There you go. 50% is less than 0, 50% is greater than 0. Now, let's do, just to get it back in our brain, if you've got your blue sheet, the blue linear regression sheet. Like my mama in here. Does anybody need to borrow a blue sheet?
That 50% would be negative 50% because it was less than 0.
We're doing the percent. Can percent be negative? Can you make a negative percent on my next test? No. Even though it's shaded that way, you're still making 50%. It's just 50% below the average. That's not a negative.
But we can make a negative in English.
We,
That is the-
Amani can make a negative in an English test.
Oh, okay.
that is the-
All right, let's find one to do all the way through.